To Joe's Astrology, and this is the astrology birth chart for Dr. Ramani, and I am excited to do this one. I was just at the gym and I saw her on the news, and I thought I'm going to do her chart as soon as I get home because I have thought about this woman here and there, and I've done videos on this idea of peddling narcissism as a as something that is pervasive in society, something that really warrants being on the news, which it doesn't. And there she was on some show, maybe the Today Show or something. And I thought, I have to do this chart. I have to see this chart. So a little bit more of a background. I checked out her on YouTube, and I was just seeing if anyone else did the chart, or if she had anything to say about astrology. And she had a video on astrology. And I have to give her credit because she admitted that she doesn't fully understand astrology. She knew what the rising was, the moon, and the sun. She was aware of that. And that was enough to give me the information I needed, because she revealed that her rising was Scorpio. So we don't have the birth time, but it's pretty close because she did say that her moon was Pisces, and we see here the moon is at 29 degrees Pisces. So if we take that rising really any more backwards, that moon's going to go into Aries, and so I think this is actually quite close. It might even be exact. So let's get into it. We know she's a psychologist. She's a popular psychologist. She's a YouTuber. She is what I would consider. She's a Capricorn. She's stating that she's a Capricorn, this Scorpio rising, Pisces moon. But what she doesn't know is that she has this Pisces moon, Pisces Chiron, and Pisces Saturn in the 5th house. That's the Leo house. And this kind of is an explanation as to why she's all over the TV and why she's all over the internet presenting. Because you think she's a psychologist. If you're a psychologist, you're going to do some research and you're going to do some practice, which I'm sure she has done. But most of what people know her as is as this presenter or this TV personality speaking about psychology. So we see this major 5th house here, which I'm going to come back to. And I'm going to kind of get into the YouTube thing, the internet. She's a Pluto Sol in the 11th house, conjunct Uranus in Virgo. And that's a lot of Mercury, because we know that Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus, and it rules Virgo. So she's a kind of like consider an Aquarius soul, an 11th house soul, which we associate with the internet. So this is a person, you could bet on being on the internet, and then with the 5th house, obviously, she has that angle of the 11th and 5th very prominent. So we definitely see her on YouTube making waves at something like 1.5 million subscribers. And we can look at the aspects here with Uranus. We see it's making a square to Jupiter in an air sign that's also in the Aquarius decan, the 3rd decan of Gemini. The 3rd decan would be the 2nd decan being Libra, the 3rd being Aquarius. She also has the moon in opposition to this Uranus. She has her Chiron in opposition, and she has her Saturn in opposition. She has her Neptune in a sextile. And these are all fairly close aspects. And here we have the big one. That Mercury that I spoke of is squaring that Uranus almost to the degree. And we see Venus here making a loose inconjunct or quincunx to that Uranus. And there's more. Speaking of that Venus, we have Venus and Mars in Aquarius as well. The sign that Uranus rules. So let's take a look at this aspect of being a psychologist. She's got Neptune in the 1st house. 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, prominent houses that have planets. Planets excel there, and we see Neptune, the planet of psychology and therapeutic practices along with its opposition Virgo, and there's Neptune right there in the first house near the ascendant. Her rising ruled by this Pluto, also Scorpio, has to do with uh, the deeper side of life, psychology, astrology, things of that nature. And it's that Neptune's making a trine to this Saturn, Chiron, and Moon in the fifth. And with Pisces also, all those planets being ruled by Neptune as well. So very, very heavy emphasis on Aquarius, Uranus, Pluto, Scorpio, Pisces, all these that can be equated to psychology, psychiatrics, mental health. And now that I have the circle here, we can also look at, interesting thing is like, who is she? What does she specialize in? Well, she's the narcissist. She's the narcissist psychologist. That's her specialty. And narcissism in astrology is Leo. And we see she's heavily invested in this fifth house Leo. So we can see not only is she this grandiose Leonian persona, even though she thinks she's a Capricorn, which, by the way, is I'd say Pisces, Capricorn, and Leo together. That's a pretty grandiose combination. Throw Scorpio in there to boot. But yeah, she's also specializes in narcissism. We see it there in the fifth with Chiron there. Chiron, this could be a person who's had a lot of trauma in her past, early life, maybe psychologically that she hasn't really brought to the surface. Maybe it's latent or unconscious. If we look into past lives, you could say this is someone who's bringing it forth and really trying to, with her understanding of her trauma, she's able to really heal that in herself. We see that with the Chiron, the Moon, Chiron, Saturn here. She's able to heal that in herself and help other people to overcome some of the things that maybe she's overcome. Now that's speculation. That's highly I just would say that's speculation. We don't know. I'm not saying that that's true by reading the chart. It can be interpreted that way. I'd have to get more information from her for that to be confirmed. And like I said, it could be unconscious. And in that case, we'll never find out. She's got a nice north node, south node here in Gemini and Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius. And Mercury is near that south node. So Pluto, we see Pluto there in the 11th, or south node, in the first, where she's coming from. Those are the places where she's coming from. And the Neptune's there too. The Mercury's moving away, the Neptune's moving towards that south node. So she's coming from a very mercurial place, and she's moving into that Neptune space with that. This is a very intelligent person, for sure. There's no doubt about it. To the point where I'm not sure that anyone that this intelligent can be trusted. But let's just say with that Mercury there moving away, and then she can do a lot with what she's doing, for sure. But yeah, I wanted to mention that south node in the first. That's more of that me, self energy. Speaking of being a narcissist and promoting herself, I have to ask myself the question. And when I see a chart like this with a grand square as well, where does the motivation come to continuously promote yourself on television? Specifically on television. I'm okay with YouTube, but even television, you constantly see her on television. I have to question what the motive is there at this point. Because you think, is it the money? And I'm going to get into that here. We see that her second house is ruled by Jupiter. Sagittarius is on the second house. She has 2 planets, including the Sun and Capricorn in the second. And we know the Capricorn Sun is climbing the ladder, like think of it as being the greatest of all time. And is this woman trying to be the greatest of all time or the most known psychologist of all time? And with that Jupiter ruling the second, it's in the eighth and it's in Gemini. So we see more of that, ruled by Mercury. It could be considered a trickster energy. And these are really pretty good placements to have for someone who's expanding their uh, finances, expanding their money, their bank, and she must be doing that with all the attention that she gets. We see Venus here in a prominent place as well. Speaking of money, it's on the fourth. It's also ruled by Uranus, and it's in that Gemini decan. And it also makes a trine to Jupiter. It's moving towards a trine, so she's getting more fortunate as life goes on. I should say becoming more fortunate as life goes on. And we see this square the nodes here. With Saturn squaring the nodes, and there's really a need to resolve this first house Jupiter energy. So I don't see, with that being said, I don't see her slowing down. I see her getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Unless there's a choice there. I mean, there is an inconjunct here between that Pluto and Venus, which we could say that there could be some rethinking, because that is the Virgo inconjunct. There could be some discrimination about what she's doing. I think that just seeing her get into astrology is testament to that, that she will maybe evolve through her practice, and maybe even with all that Pisces, maybe begin to speak more about astrology later on. We will see. She also has Pluto and Uranus squaring the nodes. So with this square and just all these aspects, two oppositions, to me, there's just so much activity in that brain. You can see with the Uranus aspects as well. With all that activity, it needs an outlet somewhere. And you can see by looking at this chart where the outlets are. And I think with the attention that someone like that gets and the activity that they have and being on TV, I think in a positive way, I would say that is primarily why you're seeing it. Because there is so much activity in it, and in order for a person to be healthy, it needs an outlet. So I will leave it at that, and I hope this video was understandable. And if you have any comments, please comment below. And like the video if you like astrology. Subscribe to the channel if you want to learn astrology. Dr. Ramani. I will teach you astrology. I think it will help you tremendously. And it will continue to give your mind that Uranian brain food for thought.